So like Jim said, my name is Brandon Tennell. I'm a first year umpire in chief here for District 6, but I'm going to have DJ here tonight with me. He's put together a wonderful slideshow to kind of hit on the high points of some of the significant rule changes that we have coming in this year, um, as well as touching on some other basic stuff that we tend to see year to year that we like to remind folks on. Cool. So, for starters, some things that changed last year. We can now allow coaches to warm up pitchers. That was huge for us last year. Very much enjoyed that. I don't know how DJ felt about that. Obviously, regular season only. Once you get into the tournament, that goes back away. But it definitely sped things up during the regular season. And then the run rule addition, the 8-run rule after 5. Um, Honestly, didn't see that too much myself, but it was helpful in certain spots. And once again, that was regular season only. Regular season only. Um, Moving into this year, lots of big changes, or lots of little but big changes, I guess is how I'd like to put it. So obviously, you see the list here. Just to hit on some of the high points. So 1.10, the bat modifications. As you can see there, they're not going to allow those choke knobs or the thumb guards or the vibration assist things that keep you from having those stingers and whatnot. Basically, anything that isn't traditionally on the bat when you buy it, I would not suggest putting it on. So make sure you let all the parents know so they're not wasting their money on that stuff. The neoprene sleeves, they are going to allow those as long as they're not white or gray. Sometimes I see a lot of kids that really lean into those and have multiple. That's always interesting. But so just pay attention to that. And then we're going to allow jewelry, it seems, which is definitely new. If anybody has dealt with us in the past, one of the things I'm sure you have noticed is, we see bracelets or necklaces or earrings or whatnot. We typically are asking you to remove those. They're going to allow jewelry now. The only caution I would throw out there is just make sure little Timmy's, not out there with a massive chain like, some big leaguer. Not saying we're going to tell him to remove it, but at some point it does become a little bit of a safety concern, and I'm sure it affects their play. So just keep that in mind. We're going to allow helmet stickers. That's also a huge thing for those that have been around in the past. I know back in my early days of umpiring, that was a massive thing. If it had a sticker on it, it was tossed, no questions asked. So it seems they're evolving on that. And then kind of moving down a little bit farther to go along with some of the equipment and stuff, they're not going to basically force the umpires to be responsible for these equipment issues anymore. We're not going to do pregame inspections. It's going to be on the manager. If something were to arise and it's it's illegal, and we've asked the coaches beforehand, are you properly equipped? And they say yes, then there are consequences that become involved. So I know DJ can probably speak a little bit more on this, because I know this was something that was very much huge and something that he wanted me to hit high on.
Yeah, it's just
Missing anything on that,
sure.
DJ? Anything you want to add?
No, I just think it's just making sure that the big thing is choke knobs, choke up assists, and thumb guards are not allowed. They are deemed improper equipment. So we will be asking players to remove them if they come up to bat with them, and if it happens again, it's a different type of tough conversation that we have to have in regards to like a potential ejection. So there was when the rule first came out this year, there was a lot of misunderstanding regarding, and it could have been worded a little bit differently. But again, we'll kind of get into the difference between improper and illegal equipment. But again, yeah, choke knobs, choke up assists, and thumb guards are deemed improper and not allowed to be used.
Yeah. So kind of moving on to something that I found very intriguing in 3.17 is we're now going to allow electronic devices, which is a bit different. It's only going to be for the one-way communication to the catcher when the team is on defense. But as many of you know, electronic devices have been a hot topic inside of dugouts the last few years. Everything from cell phones to iPads, anything under the sun you can think of. I've probably seen it in a dugout at this point. And DJ can probably agree with that. So once again, they're only allowing that one electronic device. Definitely be smart about it. Don't try to finagle the rule, as I like to say, to find a loophole or anything. I wouldn't suggest. DJ, do you have anything to add on that one too? Because I'm sure you've dove into that one a little bit more up at the higher level as well.
Yeah, it's just a radio device can be used on the catcher when the team is on defense to communicate for the purpose of calling pitches. Anything beyond that, we would look differently at that. So no visits to the mound or anything like that. It's simply when a catcher is on defense, they can have a communication device from somebody in the dugout.
I do have something to add, Brandon. This was a point of discussion at the DA meeting last Sunday. If one team has the communication, the electronic communication, and the other team doesn't, the team is still allowed to use it. It isn't one of these cases like the NFL or college football where if the communication goes out to one sideline, they have to turn the communication out to the other one too. If one team's got it and the other team doesn't, big deal. The team's allowed to use it. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, and I will add, I'm sure that some folks look at it as a potential competitive advantage. Personally, I'm not so sure how much of a competitive advantage it's giving you at the Little League level. But to each their own, I guess, is where I would go in there. So kind of putting a bow on things, there was 6.06. It's talking about the illegal bat stuff. The illegal bat penalties are going to be the same as tournament play with the potential ejection involved. DJ, is this where you wanted to talk more about illegal versus improper, or is that later on? Did I miss that?
It's later on, but again,
Okay.
Just wanting to stress the importance. There is a difference between an improper bat or improper equipment and an illegal bat.
Cool. And then just 7.15 on the equipment side, the double first base language was updated to match the softball rule on the baseball side. For those that use a double bag there at first base, definitely look into that. I don't see it too often on the baseball side, but it is becoming more popular.
The reason we put so much focus on the softball or on the double first base rule in the baseball rule book, effective this year, all Little League baseball and softball division regional tournaments at the majors level will have a double first base, and all World Series teenage and the Little League baseball division will have a double first base. So just throwing that out there in case any leagues, we have some storied leagues in our district as far as advancing to those specific tournaments. It may be worth investing in a double first base. Just throwing that out there.
Agreed.
These were significant rule changes for baseball. We'll stop here real quick. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we've covered so far? The next slide will cover the softball changes. All right. The softball changes, these are just, Brandon, these were just the 2024, the big ones that I wanted to leave in there. Leaping is legal. And the DP Flex switch for the seniors division, which I don't think we have any leagues doing seniors, but leaping is now legal. So, and then I will turn it over to you here.
Yeah. And admittedly, I will admit, I'm just now getting back into the softball side of things with taking this umpire-in-chief position. I used to do softball back in high school, kind of just getting back into it this year. So admittedly, a lot of this is new to me as well. But kind of some of the same things along the same lines as baseball, though, in terms of the significant rule changes. Once again, you see the notes about the choke knob assist and the thumb guards are improper. Similar to the neoprene sleeve rule, you have the pitcher's undershirt can't be the same color as the ball used. And once again, with the all jewelry allowed, kind of the same reference I would give is, caution your players to not have anything, extra large or, something that's going to get in the way of them playing. And then, so helmet stickers again allowed. 2.0 talks about no mandatory play. Can use courtesy runner, same thing. Once again, pregame inspections not on the umpires again, so it's going to be on the managers. Please make sure that you guys once again are checking your players, just like DJ said. It's the same scenario. If they come up, that first conversation is going to be, remove it, but that second conversation may involve, the penalties, which could lead to ejections. Same thing again with the electronic devices, as well as the illegal bat penalties. And then the other different one down there is 8.02. The approved substance list was clarified, which I'm assuming that's going to be in terms of the rosin and whatnot for the pitcher.
Yeah. We had a situation in one of our, I think, World Series tournaments last year. Softball pitchers have like these special towels that have like rosin or grip or something on them. I'm not super familiar. Sorry, softball peeps.
Me neither. I'm learning that as well.
Yeah, but we had a situation, a lengthy situation at one of our World Series tournaments last year, and so this rule is kind of a direct result of that, and just clarifying what approved substances a softball pitcher can use.
Yeah, so once again, those are kind of the significant changes on the softball side. So does anybody have any questions about some of the different ones there versus baseball? Jim, anything to add there?
Nope, doing great.
All right, well, then we're going to move on to some more rules that, if you've been with us longer than this year, you're probably more familiar with. Pitch count is obviously a huge one on the baseball side. Down there below, you see the pitch count and their thresholds and, the required days rest. Some of the big things we see a lot is the catcher to pitcher and the pitcher to catcher. In terms of catcher to the pitcher, the big thing to remember, no more than 4 innings. And even if they squat down and they take 1 pitch in the 4th inning as a catcher, they're not allowed to pitch. It's kind of a bummer. It's just something you got to pay attention to. A lot of guys do use that rule to their advantage. And there are ways to do that. You just got to kind of be smart about it. And then in terms of pitcher to catcher, 40 pitches. If you go to 41, can't catch. That's kind of, I believe we changed that, right, DJ, and that can revert back.
Yeah, it is a threshold exemption.
Yeah, there is a threshold exemption there. So they can finish the batter. It's not a hard stop. It did used to be a hard stop, but it isn't anymore. So just keep that in mind. And then DJ, anything to add there?
Nope.
Cool. So once again, talking about the days of rest, once again, that's something you can use to your advantage if you're smart about it. I know a lot of teams are playing, sometimes 3 and 4 games a week. That's a lot of throwing on the arms. So just obviously be cautious. These rules are there for a reason. I don't know the exact statistics off the top of my head, but I've read several times, with the pitch count rules and how things have, evolved with how kids pitch now, that the pitch counts are huge. You got kids that are throwing really, really hard in the upper levels of Little League now. So definitely be smart and make sure your coaches are paying attention. The other big thing that I notice a lot, I know kids play travel ball a lot. Make sure you're keeping tap on what their arms are doing there. Now, obviously, it doesn't count against any rules, but I always caution people, don't wear out your kids, double over. I know you want to win baseball games, but sometimes, ruining a kid's arm isn't necessarily worth that. So I always caution people there. Admittedly, I'm just learning again about the softball side of things. Obviously, a lot more lenient in terms of pitch count. They do innings, so not necessarily the pitch count, as listed there. Yeah, and then obviously there's some of the notes there about pitching in consecutive days. You can't do 3 days in a row, can't pitch in 2 games in a day, except for some exceptions there with junior and senior league in baseball. And then the resumption of games exception, which you get into some stickier stuff there, in terms of say you have a game that is delayed or canceled, and you have to come back to resume it. It's whatever pitchers are available that day. It doesn't necessarily matter what they threw in that game. If it's a week later and they've thrown in a game a day before that makeup game, you need to pay attention to those pitch counts again, because they may not be legal. The pitch count is kind of its own entity, if you will, in the rule book. It doesn't really hold to other rules. Anything else, DJ, there?
You're cruising. Keep going.
Beautiful. So bat specifications, obviously for baseball, USA bats for majors and below, USA bats are the BB core for intermediate and above. And then for softball, you want to be looking for that BPF 1.20. There are some length and barrel size, as noted there with baseball and softball, both minors, majors, and then on up. Obviously, you see with the older the age group, the descriptions and the guidelines change. A huge one that is obviously I don't see them as much anymore, but I definitely still see them. Batting donuts are not allowed. People often think they are, because they think they're a traditional weight. What we consider a traditional weight is going to be one of the batting sleeves. Those are okay. But if we see a donut, it's one of those things we're also going to ask you to remove it and not even have it in the dugout. And then pine tar. I've only seen this a couple of times, but I know when you get into the older divisions, it becomes a more of an issue. No pine tar. Just steer your kids away from that. It's a sticky mess anyways. You don't want it in the dugout. Undershirts and play calling bands. So with baseball, if they do have an undershirt, it needs to be a solid collar, not gray or white. Typically, it's one of those things I also caution, don't have a kid out there necessarily in, a winter coat underneath their jersey, if it's going to restrict their play and whatnot. And then with softball, obviously, like we talked about earlier, if the ball is white, they shouldn't have a white undershirt. If it's optic yellow, they shouldn't have an optic yellow undershirt. Just kind of the same things. And then same thing with the play calling bands. Just no white, gray, optic yellow in terms of that stuff. Kind of the same lines along the undershirts.
One piece on the play calling bands. They do need to be, when it says they need to be worn as intended, meaning you can't have a play calling band on your calf, or you can't have a play calling band on your belt, which we see a lot of, or anything like that. A play calling band, it must be worn as intended, meaning on the arm.
Cool. So moving on, getting a little deeper into Rule 3.01 with the equipment inspections. Once again, the only thing the umpires are going to do now is we're going to just confirm with the managers at the plate meeting that everything is legal and ready for play. Once we have that confirmation, we're going to assume that you've made sure that you don't have anything like the choke up assist, the choke up knob, the thumb guards, things like that. And then I'll kind of let DJ go into his spiel on improper versus illegal equipment.
Yeah, so improper equipment, that is the choke up assist, that's choke up knobs, that's thumb guards, that's a dangling throat protector, that's a skull cap, that's a catcher using a fielder's glove, a first baseman using a catcher's mitt, anything that we would deem a traditional batting donut, anything that we would deem improper equipment. We are just going to simply say, hey, that's not allowed, it's not legal, and you need to remove it. If improper equipment is then brought back into the game, we would have an unsporting situation, and we would have a potential ejection situation there. The whole purpose of this rule, we're not searching for ejections. Okay, you got to go ask grandma. I'm working. Sorry. Thank you. The whole purpose of this, we're not like trying to search or like look for ejections or anything. I just want to be transparent with everybody. And it so that's improper equipment. Going into illegal equipment, there's two versions of illegal equipment. It's this easy. You have an illegal bat. That's it. An illegal bat has two subcategories, one with pine tar and one that's been like shaved or rolled or blatantly modified. So again, the only immediate ejectable offense is an illegal bat. And an illegal bat is defined as one with pine tar or one that has been shaved or rolled or blatantly modified. So that is the difference between improper versus illegal equipment. Illegal equipment is simply an illegal bat, shaved or modified with pine tar or with pine tar. Improper equipment is literally everything else. So the 9 straps, the thumb pros, choke up knot, anything like that, we'll ask them to remove. The only problem that we have is if an improper equipment that has been asked to be removed is brought back into the game. That's when we have an issue. Illegal bats or illegal equipment, so pine tar or a bat that's been blatantly modified, that is the same penalty now that is in the tournament. So the tournament penalty and the regular season penalty are now identical. That is a change. And the penalty is the player is ejected, the manager is ejected, and you lose an adult base coach. So it seems intense because Little League is very passionate about making sure that there is no cheating and there's no dangerous situations, especially when we're talking about bats being heat rolled or shaved or anything like that. So again, nobody's trying to search for anything bad or threaten or anything like that. It's just we're here to present the rules, and there was some confusion between improper versus illegal, and so that's what it is. So pine tar and a modified bat, that's illegal. Everything else is improper.
DJ, just for clarification on illegal, a U-trip bat instead of a USA bat, that's illegal or improper?
That would be improper. That would be improper. You would just say, hey, let's get you a different bat. Now, if that bat makes it back into the field of play again, then we have a different situation, and that would just be an ejection. And it would just be an ejection of the player at that point, or the man. I would have to look, and I left my phone in the, or no, I have my phone. I can look. But I think it's a 901D situation where we would have an ejection for bringing improper equipment back into the field. But yeah, just simply having the wrong style of bat, no, that's not illegal. That would be improper.
All right, thank you.
Cool. Anything else, DJ, on that?
Nope, that is all.
Okay, so going on to 3.03, some key takeaways talking about mandatory play when you're play 9, bat 9. In order for it to be an at bat, they need to enter the box with no count and finish that entire experience on offense. That means you can't, you can't have him bat. It goes to first base. He runs around to second, and then you decide you want to put a pinch runner in. They're not going to count that as his at bat, if you will. I believe that's. Am I speaking correctly there on that, DJ?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. And then on the defensive side, it's consecutive defensive outs. So you can't plug little Timmy in for 3 outs in the first and then hold out until the 5th inning and get him his other 3. He's got to have his 6 defensive outs consecutively. Moving on from there, once again, managers warming up pitchers. You can't have a coach warm up the pitcher in regular season now. Once again, super helpful for regular season, keeping games rolling. And just the other thing, though, on that note, don't count on that every time. Make sure your catchers are ready. They shouldn't be undressing every single inning you go in. If they're, 8th batter at that inning, there's no reason for them to remove their shin guards. Take the chest protector off, take the helmet off, let them cool off, but leave those shin guards on. That way it's just nice and quick out. There you go. And then once again, with the communication stuff, teams can use the one-way communication device from the manager or the coach to the catcher while the team is on defense. So just once again to emphasize, from the manager or the coach to the catcher, that's the only one-way device that's allowed.
Just a note, the tournament play, you still have to use continuous batting order for juniors and below. So I don't know of any of our leagues that are juniors and below that don't use continuous batting order during the regular season, but we would obviously highly recommend, so that way your coaches and your players are used to continuous batting order. There is no running the bases requirement on their first time around, their first time at bat, like there had been in the past. And there is no defensive requirement. So just kind of keep that in mind there. I just have this play 9 bat 9 in there just in case, you know, a league chooses to use it.
No, that was perfect, because that's exactly what we're on next to. Yeah, talking about the continuous batting order, like DJ just said, obviously that is what we use in the postseason. And he obviously, like he said, with those requirements, there's no defensive requirement, and the requirements on their offensive experience do differ. So make sure you do notice the differences there, like DJ's talked about. And then, like he said, I highly suggest you using the continuous batting order in regular season too. Just get your kids in the mindset when it gets to the postseason that they're already doing that. It gets the coaches in the mindset as well. People don't often think about that. But coaching for a continuous batting order versus only 9 is massively different. So just make sure you're setting your guys' league teams in the postseason up for success. Talking about the run rule once again, they did add the 8 runs in the 5th, so it is now 15 after 3, 10 after 4, and 8 after 5. Once again, just kind of pace of play. You know, there are some games that run a little long. They get into that 5th, 4th, 5th inning, and one team breaks it open. I think that's kind of why they added that 8-run rule in there. Keeps those games from running 2.5 hours. Moving on to like double headers, which is a huge deal, especially when we're getting into the postseason and whatnot. So just make sure you're paying attention to that. In the minors, you can have 1 doubleheader in a calendar week. In majors in baseball, you can have 2 doubleheaders in a calendar week, but you cannot have any triple headers. I know, once again, getting into travel ball stuff, I know that those rules differ. And there's some teams that are playing 4 games in a day sometimes. But make sure that you guys understand the difference with us. And then also with softball, 2 doubleheaders in a 7-day period, no triple headers as well. Except for intermediate and above, that does change. Moving on to player counts, must have 9 and at least 1 acting manager. So we did have this come up, I believe it was 2 years ago in a game that I had, where a team ended up with 8. And unfortunately, once you get to that point, no game. Now there are, I'm sure, league options, and I'm sure local leagues have made the option to play with 8. I've seen that before. So I'm sure there are local modifications. So if you may have that at your local league, but just be aware of those differences. And DJ, you can add on to that if you like.
All good.
All right. So moving on, 5.07 inning limits. So with T-ball, which I know a lot of T-ball programs are growing with our district. Pretty simple with the inning limits, 3 outs or all players have batted. I definitely wouldn't recommend changing that or modifying that. You could be there all day sometimes with those games. And you definitely don't want that. With minors, 3 outs and all players have batted or 5 runs have been scored. As noted there, local leagues can choose to suspend the 5-run rule in the 6th extra innings. I know a lot of our leagues do modify that one a little bit for their minors. So just make sure you're aware of the differences there as well. Okay, well, so I'm actually DJ. Since you have a highly preferred note there, I'll just let you kind of take this one if that's okay.
For sure, yeah, I'll give you a little breather. Yeah, keeping 1 foot in the box that's found in Rule 6.02. It's technically not a regular season rule. It's a local league option to enforce it during the regular season. I always encourage you to take it because it's one of those things that is incredibly strictly enforced once you start district tournament play and above. So it's basically, after a pitch, the batter needs to keep their foot in the box on all called pitches. Like if they're brushed back, they don't have to keep their foot in the box. If they swing, they don't have to keep their foot in the box. There's a common myth out there that people overreact and say they have to keep their foot in the box on everything. And that's not really the case. It's just if it's a called and caught strike, or if it's a called and caught ball, we don't want them walking away from the batter's box. We want to keep their foot in the box. So that's just kind of the note there. Uncaught third strike, 605B, first base not occupied with less than 2 outs. Any situation with 2 outs. It doesn't matter if first base is occupied or not when there are 2 outs. If there is an uncaught third strike and the batter is not paying attention to all the moms and dads yelling, run, 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 and they walk back, they can walk, 20 feet towards the dugout. They can still run to first base. They are only declared out or giving themselves up once they hit dead ball territory. And if my memory serves me correctly, every league in our district, their dead ball territory is essentially the dugout itself. So a player could walk all the way to the dugout gate and then turn and run to first base, and they would technically not be declared out for giving themselves up. They would have to step foot into dead ball territory. So there's a note there. Illegal bat, it's just a penalty there. The batter is out, the batter is ejected, the managers are ejected, and they lose their adult base coach. And then 608A2 is talking about intentional walks. Each player can be intentionally walked once, one verbal, like sometimes we'll see in MLB or college where the manager will come out, call time, and wave 4 fingers saying they want to intentionally walk the batter. That is allowed, but that can only happen once per player per game. So if Brandon's coming up to bat and he's a hoss and he's swinging hard, I can come up there and I can call time and I can say, hey, I want to walk him. That's the only time I can do that to Brandon. I can do that to everybody on his team, but only one time. Now, I still can elect to intentionally walk Brandon his next time up, but my pitcher has to physically throw those 4 pitches. So that's something to keep in mind. And then even if you don't throw the 4 pitches, say it's Brandon's first intentional walk and I'm doing the automatic, pitches to him, those are still added to the pitch count. So that's something that's kept in mind. And then you can intentionally walk at any time throughout the duration of the at bat. So if you have a 0-0 count and you do the intentional walk and you're just waving them on with 4, you would add 4 pitches. If you have 2 balls and 1 strike, you can still elect to intentionally walk at that point as well, but you would only add 2 pitches to the count, not 4 more. So that is how the intentional walk works. We can skip batting out of turn.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, so moving on then to 7.0, the runner. So, and once again, I'm going to lean on DJ with this again, just because of some of the nuances here. But the base awards, it's obviously a misconception a lot of times on what the runner gets for, maybe a I don't know. There's different scenarios. There's a million scenarios that could run in my head.
Yeah.
DJ.
Yeah, so a lot of people think they get the base they're going to +1. The old Correct. 1+1. I've heard that when I was a kid playing baseball. And the base awards there's 4 different types. Technically, a home run is not a home run. It's technically a 4 base award. Fun fact, you learned something today. But we have 3 base awards, 2 base awards, and 1 base awards. And for example, the most common one is probably a ball thrown out of play. And it is generally most of the time a 2 base award. But it does kind of matter. It can matter who threw the ball, when they threw the ball, type of stuff, depending on how many bases they are awarded. The one time it's not a 2 base award and it's a 1 base award is if a pitcher were to throw a ball out of play. So, for example, a pitcher throwing a baseball and it go under a backstop or something like that, and under the fence, that would technically be a one base award or a ball thrown out of play, something like that by the pitcher, or in an older revision, attempting a balk and throwing it out of, well, I guess technically that would be a 2-base award because they would be a fielder. So, but regardless, we don't have to get into the nitty gritty, but you can find base awards in rules 704 and 705. It breaks down in order: a 4-base award, then all of the 3-base awards, then all of the 2-base awards, and then all of the 1-base awards. And that's where they're broken down there.
And then, yeah, one of my favorites there, you got noted, the overrun of first base. You'll get mom and dad in the crowd that freak out when little Timmy runs and turns towards second base after he runs through first. He has to make an attempt. And once again, that attempt may be defined by a variety of things. And it's going to be the judgment of that umpire there as to what that attempt may be. However, I mean, they have to show an attempt or intent to advance to second base. Just turning or just, looking towards second doesn't necessarily mean that they're making an attempt to advance. This is probably one of the most common things I personally see when I'm umpiring first base. I mean, it's a good idea to teach your kids to break down and turn where they need to turn. But you're always going to have that one kid that wants to always turn left. Personally, as long as he's not taking a big step or kind of a leap towards second, I'm not going to push the issue. Going into the appeals, that's another big one. So for like tag ups or missed bases, the big thing is the ball must be live. There's this misconception that the coach can call timeout and he can come out and he can ask the umpire, hey, I think he missed that base. And if you do that to me, I'm just gonna kind of look at you and say, okay, you have to have the ball live. Your pitcher then needs to, obviously be coached up on what to do from there, on how to properly step off. We had an incident, was it last year, DJ, I believe, or the year before, where
it was the year before.
Yeah, where there was an issue where tried to call timeout, then we put the ball back in play. Kid ended up stepping off with the wrong foot. Then we get into a whole different issue, and then they couldn't make the appeal anymore because technically a different play had happened. So it's a whole to do. So just make sure you pay attention to that. And then, yeah, there must have been a play attempted, and then the defense has to be on the field. And then in terms of the base runners leaving early, it affects all the runners, not just the one. And the runners need returned as far back as allowed. And it's all based upon the umpire's judgment on the value of the hit in those scenarios. If the umpire thinks that, little Timmy was only going to make it to second on that hard ground ball to right field and he left early, that's probably all he's going to get because Johnny's standing on first base from his hit. So little Timmy thinks he got to third, but in all reality, he's going back to second. Continued, admittedly, once again, I'm still learning some of the nuances of the softball. I know the runner leaving early is treated a little bit differently. In minors, the runner must wait for the ball to reach the batter before leaving base. Majors, juniors, and seniors must wait for the pitcher to release the pitch. If they don't do those things, the penalty is no pitch and the runner's automatically out. It definitely pays to make sure that everybody understands that rule in softball. However, helping at the Central Region tournament a few years back, I seen that called a lot more than you thought it should be at that level. So just make sure you're really hitting on that. Moving into the special pinch runner and the courtesy runners, special pinch runner only used in terms of the play 9, bat 9 scenario, continuous batting order. You're not going to have that same scenario. Once per inning, player can only be pinch ran for once a game. So it's kind of the same thing as the intentional walk. You can only do it to them once a game and that one time per inning. And then the pinch runner must be a substitute. It's got to be somebody coming off of the bench. Courtesy runner, catcher and pitcher of record can get courtesy runners. And then the runner who made the last out, unless using the play 9 bat 9, is going to be that courtesy runner. Anything you want to add there, DJ?
Yeah, I just want to get specific on the courtesy runner. It's the catcher and pitcher of record, can be ran for when they're on base with 2 outs. I know that we kind of launched this last year, over the last 2 years, and there were a lot of, I was doing regular season games across the district and people trying to run for their catcher with no outs. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. It's 2 outs, the catcher and pitcher of record. If your catcher and pitcher of record are both on base with 2 outs, you can run for both of them at the same time now. That is different than last year. Last year you had to pick. This year you get both. So again, catcher and pitcher of record with 2 outs can be ran for, and it's the runner who made the last out, not the person who is scheduled to bat last, which is the extra inning run rule.
Yeah. Cool. And then talking more about the double first base, defense is only allowed to use the white portion of the bag. They should not be using that orange outside portion of the bag. It's not going to be, I mean, if they have their foot on that orange portion of the bag, it's going to be treated the same as being off the bag. Anytime play is made, batter must be used the colored portion. No play, white portion, okay. And then runners must return only to the white portion. So same scenario as, the foot with the first baseman. When they're returning back to the bag, the runner must use that white portion. If they're grabbing onto that orange portion and for some reason they've got nothing on the white, obviously we're going to treat that as off the bag. Everybody's favorite, obstruction. So 2 parts, and admittedly, and DJ can attest to this, I constantly am talking to him all season about obstructions because it's something I'm constantly fine-tuning myself. So don't feel bad if you don't completely, I guess, understand it, or you think something that may be a myth and it's not really how it is. With type A, plays being made on an obstructed runner, that play is going to be immediately dead, and the runner advances 1 base beyond the last legally acquired base. With type B, play not being made on an obstructed runner, it's not immediately dead. We're going to let that play out. It continues, and then we impose the penalties after. The runner could still be called out in that scenario. And if you have no ball, there is no equals, sorry, no ball equals obstruction. There is no in the act of receiving the throw. That's one of the myths that we hear a lot. And DJ can speak a little bit more as well on that.
Yeah, so just 2 quick examples. Type A, with it being immediately dead and a runner is guaranteed their base. We'll see this the most like a play at the plate, right? Where the catcher is blocking maybe access to home plate, not allowing the runner a straight trip to the plate. The ball is on its way there. That would be an immediate time, and the runner automatically gets home plate because they've legally acquired third base. The time where we see type B, where the play is not being made on an obstructed runner. An example would be a ball hit to right field, and the batter runner is rounding first base, and the first baseman's just kind of standing there, and the runner has to go around the first baseman. Okay, and so if in the umpire's judgment the runner would have acquired second base without the obstruction, the umpire can award that runner second base. However, if the runner would not have acquired second base in the umpire's judgment, that is the part where the runner could still actually be called out. So it's never assume on obstruction until the umpire calls time and tells you what to do. Always play hard and play smart, run hard, run smart until the play is over, and then let the umpire tell you what to do. And the reason we call out there is no in the act of receiving the throw is because that is in the Major League Baseball rule, and that is what people see the most of on TV. And so they see that the pros can do it, so we can do it. Now, our rule is very, very black and white. I actually love our rule. Obstruction is my favorite rule. If there is if you have the ball, you can't obstruct. If you don't have the ball, you can obstruct. And that's pretty much it. I'll take this one. So the interference can be really tricky. A lot of times what we see though is 2 players collide
on a field, right? An offensive player and a defensive player will run into each other, and so many times we see no call. It was a train wreck. It was a baseball play, or it was a softball play. And that you cannot have two players from opposing teams run into each other and have nothing. You can't. It's literally in the rules. So it's the umpire's job. They got to figure out, what happened. Was the fielder attempting to make a play on a batted ball, and were they interfered with by a runner? You would potentially have interference on the runner. Was a runner attempting to run and a fielder was in their way? You would potentially have obstruction. So you kind of have to, kind of get into some of these nitty gritty stuff. You'll find a lot of interference in rules 708 and 709. The big one we see a ton of is a runner on third and a passed ball. And the catcher runs to retrieve it. The batter's box is not a safe haven. The batter cannot hinder the catcher's ability to make a play at the plate. So the batter is responsible for getting out of the way. That's something that's incredibly important to note. The box is not a safe haven. There is no time where it's a safe haven. Again, we don't have to get into a lot of the nitty gritty. Coaches interfering with the defense making a play would obviously be coaches interference, or physically assisting your runners. That would be a situation. Simply giving a high five or something to that effect is fine. We're looking at physically assisting. We had this unfortunately happen in our state tournament, in the 9, 10, and 11 state tournament hosted by Hagerstown last year in 2024. It might have been the championship game, actually.
It was.
And there was a situation where a player had fallen down, and the third base coach bent down and reached down and picked the player up. And whether you agree with the technicality of the rule or anything like that, it was deemed physically assisting. So additional notes, there is no must slide rule in Little League. The rule states that if a fielder has the ball and is waiting to make a tag, a runner must attempt to get around the fielder who is waiting with the ball to make a tag. So there is no must slide rule. That's a common misconception as well that is out there. You do not have to slide. Now, if a fielder, if you do slide, you can't slide head first unless you're going back into a bag. You can slide head first, but you cannot slide head first going into a bag. That's all for that one.
All right. So some things with the pitcher. In between innings, big thing. 8 prep pitches or 1 minute. It's really, once again, it's another pace of play thing, trying to keep things rolling. That minute goes very fast in between innings. And a lot of times you'll see kids, out there kind of lollygagging, playing around in between innings. Get your kids into the habit of not doing that, because they are literally ruining their warm-up time. The 1 minute begins as soon as the third out of the previous inning is made. So as soon as that out's made, we're starting that timer. So you got to get your kids out there and get them ready. Once again, that goes back to making sure your catcher's ready. He's not removing his equipment when he doesn't need to, things like that. Going on to illegal pitches. With an illegal pitch, ball is dead unless the pitch is delivered. If delivered, manager can elect the outcome of the play versus the illegal pitch. If all runners and the runner reach their next base, illegal pitch is ignored. If not delivered or manager selects illegal pitch, ball and the pitch are charged to the pitch count. In softball, there is no pitch count, so you don't have to worry about that caveat. One thing to remember, in majors and below, there is no such thing as a balk in Little League. Once again, that's majors and below. Mound visits, it's a big thing. A lot of times you get guys that think they can make multiple visits. The rule is once an inning and twice a game. Second visit an inning or third visit in a game means you have to remove the pitcher. That's kind of a big deal. Guys kind of forget. Make sure you're taking notes of that as coaches, because we definitely take note of it as umpires, because that's something we got to pay attention to. Once again, pace of play thing. We don't need 3 visits an inning to get things figured out. so they kind of force your hand on those. And a timeout is granted to talk to any defensive player equals a visit. So if you call timeout and you go talk to the third baseman, you're getting charged with a visit. Even though you're not talking to the pitcher per se, you're still getting charged that visit.
Just adding on to once an inning and twice a game. If it's minors, it's actually twice an inning and 3 times a game. So you do get, for minors, you do get 1 additional visit on each category there.
Okay, and then talking specifically Rule 9 with the umpire, 9.03. So unfortunately, you do see it a lot where there's a 1 umpire system or there's minor games where maybe 1 umpire is only needed. If that is the case, it must be an adult. If you're running 2 umpires in a game, at least one of them must be an adult. There obviously are a variety of exceptions there listed. Game coordinator who must be an adult, must not be a manager or a coach of either team, can only serve as the game coordinator of 1 game at a time. Included in pregame, must be at the game site the entire time. Not there to rule on the game, but oversee the conduct. Has power to eject participants. Sole judge on the field, conditions, weather-related issues. That is something that I know some people get confused in terms of who's in charge of, calling a game or in charge of, who decides, in terms of weather. Obviously, the weather decides, but it's up to that home plate umpire or that game coordinator or the crew chief to be making that decision. I know we had an instance last year where we were trying to get some, I believe it was some local postseason games done, and we ran into some rain, and there was a lot of confusion on who was in charge of making what decision. And at the end of the day, in terms of that specific game, that game coordinator is the one in charge of making that decision. Anything to add there, DJ?
No, I think it's just we want to make sure that we're if we understand that there's a lot of high schoolers that umpire games at our local leagues and whatnot, and if they're 2 16-year-olds or 1 16-year-old, that's great. You are required to have somebody there that's an adult that's overseeing the game. So we can't send 16-year-olds out there and just hope for the best. We still have to make sure that there is an adult that is overseeing the game, and as it's stated, the adult cannot be a manager or coach of either team. It could be a board member, it could be somebody there, but they have to be identified as the game coordinator, and they have to be at the game site. I know, for example, they can't be game coordinating for 2 games at one time. So for example, I think of Harry Bridges has the 2 fields right next to each other. I think of Newcastle has the 2 fields right next to each other. Hagerstown has the baseball field and the softball field right next to each other. They would not be able to be in the middle and be the game coordinator of both games going on at the same time. One game, each game has their own game coordinator if you're using umpires who are under the age of 18.
Yeah, so with that, I believe DJ has something set up for us here.
Yeah, so you can either scan the QR code or you can go to menti.com, MENTI.com, and then just type in these digits here, 81991966. I'm going to do it too. MENTI.com and then 81991966. There we go. We got some people ready to go. I'll give about another 20 seconds 6 players. Just a quick quiz. So this is the official Little League Rules to Know quiz. This is something that we'll send out in PDF form. We'll send out the slide presentation to everybody. We'll obviously send out the recording to everybody, and we will send out the Little League Rules to Know quiz. This is something that is like the bare minimum of what's it going to take for you to learn. I'm losing everybody. Why did I lose everybody? Was I not? Should I have started it? Just so that way we can make sure that everybody understands what's going on. So we'll go ahead and get started. It's just a fun little interactive way to make sure. So this first question here, looking at your device, are the hands part of the bat? Everyone has voted. No, hands are not part of the bat. Hands are not part of the bat. Right. And if you want to rejoin, you can. It's the same, menti.com, menti.com, 8199-1966. And we're almost done. Right at an hour. Perfect. Is the batter entitled to the batter's box? Meaning, can they be called out for interference? Are they entitled to the batter's box? Yes or no? Are they entitled to the batter's box? Yes or no? Yes, they can be called out for interference. This is I don't know why. I'm a silly goose. I messed that up. They are not entitled to the batter's box. They can be called out for interference. Silly me. I worded that wrong. We'll skip through that. A foul tip is a dead ball, meaning runners must return to their bases. Is the foul tip a dead ball? True, or is it a live ball? False. Foul tip, a dead ball, true, or a live ball? False. It is a live ball. A foul tip is a live ball. So a foul tip is a ball that is nicked by the batter. It goes sharp and direct to the catcher's hands and legally caught. The batter must attempt to avoid being hit by a pitch. The batter must attempt to avoid being hit by a pitch. True or false? It's true, yes. A batter must attempt to avoid. So they cannot just stand there and take one for the team. They have to make some sort of an attempt to move out of the way. Got a little competition going here. The batter must have pitches thrown in order to be potentially walked. They have to. True or false? We covered this. Yay. People were listening. Thank you. Yes. They do not, unless it's their second time around. Then they would need those pitches thrown. Coming up on halfway here, runners must wait until the ball crosses the plate in order to steal. Baseball only. The runner must wait until the ball crosses the plate in order to steal. Baseball only. Everyone has voted. False. This is a trick question. I was being sneaky. On the baseball rule, the runners must wait until the ball reaches the batter, which is essentially the same thing. Like, let's be honest here. It's essentially the same thing. But no, I was being sneaky. I'm sorry. All right, halfway question. Sliding headfirst is legal in Little League. Can you slide headfirst in Little League? True or false? Technically false. It's technically false. So this was implied. I guess technically I could see what you're saying. Implied going into a bag. You can slide head first, but only returning to a base. Only returning to a base. Question 8 here on the home stretch. You do not have to slide in Little League. So is there a must slide rule? You do not have to slide. True, you do not have to slide, or false, you don't have to slide. True, you do not have to slide in Little League. Skip through this. We'll save the leaderboard stuff for the end. Let's see here. The runner always has the right to the base path. So this is tricky. We didn't talk about it too much. Interference. The runner always has a right to their base path. True or false? True or false? This is false. If a fielder is in their base path and they're attempting to field the ball, a batted ball, not a thrown ball, but a batted ball, the runner would have to go around the fielder in that instance. The runner would have to go around the fielder. A batted ball belongs to the fielder. A thrown ball belongs to the runner. A pitcher must be removed after hitting 3 batters in a game. True or false? Pitcher must be removed after hitting 3 batters in a game. True or false? False. Very good. In case you're wondering, there is no limit. You could technically hit 85 batters in a game because that's how many pitches you can throw. There is no limit for hit batters. See how everybody's doing here. Look out, Stacy's catching up. Couple more questions here. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. How many defensive visits does a team have per inning? Majors, a team have per inning before their pitcher must be removed. Before the pitcher must be removed. They get 1 visit and then their pitcher must be removed. They get 1 defensive visit per inning before their pitcher must be removed. How many pitches does a team get per game before a pitcher must be removed? Before the pitcher must be removed, how many visits do they get? Yeah, this one is 2. They get 2. On the third one, they have to remove them. So they get 2 penalized visits before they have to remove. Last 2 here, last 2 questions. Are there balks in Little League, majors and below? Are there balks in Little League? Yes or no? Correct. Balks are in intermediate and above. And our last question. This is a good one. This is a good one. Sunglasses are illegal for a pitcher to wear and must be removed. Sunglasses are illegal. True or false? Wow.
That is a good one.
Confident people. False. Very good. Sunglasses are not illegal. Not at all. Let's see here. Quiz leaderboard. And out on top. Who wins? Whoo! Kevin and Josie sneaking in there. Congratulations. I'm sorry I don't have any Starbucks gift cards or anything to share, but we appreciate you guys participating with us with that. So with that, any questions really quickly here? And while if you have questions, feel free to unmute. I'm just, again, we're going to share the recording to everybody. We're going to share a PDF of the slideshow presentation, and we'll share a PDF of the Little League Rules to Know. Again, the Little League Rules to Know is really good to just hand out to local umpires, to coaches, to board members. Those are like the nitty gritty of like, if you needed to umpire a game in 30 minutes, what do you need to know? That's the purpose of the Little League Rules to Know. So there are other things we have, you know, right now we just launched the very first Little League Rules Challenge. It's available online. But that's a lot. That's pretty intense for non like seasoned or non-practicing umpires. But the Little League Rules to Know is a really good resource. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. Anyone at all?
I'll ask you one, DJ. If
Yeah.
there's one rule that no one's in your time that no one ever seems to ever know off the top of your head, like one that a coach has to know, what do you think it is?
Oh Lordy. Oh God, I have no idea. And the
Fair
funny thing
enough.
is like, there's so many times where I'm like, I would make such a good coach because I would, maneuver around the rules, but I can't think of one. And I know they're out there.
I know the pitcher to catcher thing for me is always huge when I did coach. So knowing the caveats of that one was always big for me, especially when you have kids that you have to rely on to do both your pitching and your catching.
I
I've
can
got
think
one.
of one. I can think of one.
Go ahead, Jim.
Infield fly rule. They always
That's
mess up.
it. That's what I was gonna
okay,
say.
there we go. See, Jim's on it.
Yep. I was sitting here thinking, I was like, you know what, infield fly. I would tell my defense to drop the ball every time.
Every time.
I would not. I would always coach my defense. I would have some sort of code word for the infield fly, and that would be the code word to not catch a fly ball in the infield.
And let the chaos ensue.
Yeah, exactly. Jim, anything else?
No, I think you guys did a great job.
Awesome. Well,
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
So I
Shout
appreciate
out-
DJ putting that slideshow together, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, no, shout out to Brandon. Everybody's going to be a great resource. I'm still around. I've been blessed with the opportunity to serve on the National Umpire Development Committee, and I've recently been promoted or moved into the role of the regional training coordinator with Central Region. So I'm still around, but Brandon is definitely going to be a great resource, and we want to be out there. You're still our district. You're still my district, so I want to be out there supporting. That's why I was asking when everybody's opening days are, because I want to see when I can get on the field and get some reps in and get to see everybody again. It's an exciting time of the year. So great job, Brandon. Thanks, Jim, for the opportunity. Brandon, I'll turn it over to you to close it out. We'll stop the recording and then let everybody get their night back.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely appreciate everyone joining. And the last thing I do want to leave with is, definitely get with us. We've got a lot of really, really good umpires in the district. DJ and Don and everyone has done a really good job of building up our roster, and we've got a lot of good outreach as well. So you've got a lot of opportunity to have some really, really good umpires come during your regular season even. Don't waste an opportunity to get us out there because I promise you we're available. We're looking for good games. We're looking for quality stuff to get out there and get our reps in so that we can have our practice just all the same as you guys. So I don't really have anything else. Jim, do you have anything you want to leave us with?
No, not really. But thank you everyone for attending, and league presidents or other league board members, if you didn't have coaches attend tonight, please point them to the video recording and to the slide deck that Brandon and DJ are gonna send to you. And
And feel free, and they can feel free to reach out to me via email. I know I've also given my phone number out to a few, and I've got DJ on speed dial number 2. So anything I need, I know he's got an answer for. So
yeah, I should also say where the video will be. It'll be out on our district YouTube channel, and I'll actually need to send that in email to all the league presidents, and they can forward it on to everybody.
appreciate that, Jim.
That's all for me.